Hello friends and welcome to Fire Emblem Discussion. So after reviewing that tier list the other day, a lot of you asked me to make my own tier list. So here it is. As you can see here, I have ranked every character, and their position inside of each tier does matter, though there's a few that I'm a little iffy on. So I want to go over the reasoning for pretty much everybody here, but also the point of doing this isn't for you to just accept my opinion, but it is to share with you what I think after looking at pages and pages of stats and numbers and learned spells and skills and personal skills and everything and trying to make sense of it all and put it together into like one tier list here. I wanted to do this and then get your thoughts and adjust it to kind of like the popular opinion. So I want this to be a community Fire Emblem discussion tier list, right? So let's get started and just kind of go through this. Actually, before we go, a few rules. Number one, I'm not taking availability into account. So Hubert doesn't get docked points because he's only available on one route. Sylvain doesn't gain points, doesn't gain any favor for being readily available in every route, and so on and so forth. So availability doesn't matter. Number two, we are assuming base kits as soon as they are recruited, how they are and how they would be, as if they were level 1, aside from the Knights of Syros and the teacher characters where that's not exactly possible to do. And of course, this will be considered in maddening difficulty, not hard or normal, and excessive grinding will not count. Sure, you may do, a few battles during the month, some side battles and a bunch of paralocks and stuff, and that's fine, but no sitting there with a broken weapon chipping at enemies for days until you eventually level up things and stuff. Just none of that. No excessive grinding. Just kind of normal playthrough, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So here, I guess we'll start at the bottom with below average. Now, I have 5 tiers here, the bottom being below average. And this is a character that, because there's only one of them there, this is a character that brings nothing to the table, that has nothing unique about them, and has nothing that can really just contribute to the team throughout the entire game. Dedue's only redeeming quality is his high defense early game and his high strength early game, though people catch up to him in both of those eventually, and his speed is atrocious from the beginning, and he only has a 20% growth in said speed. So Dedue will be useful in the early game, and he'll be able to tank some hits, but eventually it's going to get to the point where he's taking so much damage from being doubled by everything, whereas tankiness really loses its usefulness. It kind of disappears. His best use is as a guard adjutant, but that's about all he's got, honestly. Moving on to average, we have 5 characters here, and I'll start at the bottom with Caspar. Caspar doesn't bring any unique rallies or other unique skills to the table that really set him apart from anyone else. Caspar doesn't really have anything super special about him. He will be decent. His base speed is what his real issue is, but he is more salvageable than but I would argue he is more salvageable than Dedue. You can also go the whole grappler. You also can go grappler route for him to be a guard adjutant, which is the best adjutant, of course. But just overall, he ends up being a little better, especially because of his speed stat. That isn't going to be just an abomination throughout the entire game. It's going to be decent after a little bit of training, and I just think that's better than what Dedue has to offer. Gilbert comes ready to go. I mean, you can use him right from the moment you get him in Blue Lions. He does miss out on any training that you can do in Part 1, so he will be pretty stuck to where he's at. He'll be stuck in the Armor Knight, Fortress Knight, to maybe Great Knight class line, unless you do a lot of work and try and work in some flying to get him to Wyvern. His biggest redeeming factor is his rally. He learns rally defense at D Authority, so +4 defense can be a huge thing on one unit. It can help them survive a turn. I don't know. It just felt more useful than anything Caspar Dedue had to offer at this point. Raphael is kind of a similar case to Gilbert. However, he is going to be trainable, and he's honestly a similar case to Dedue as well. But at D Authority, he will get Rally Strength, which is arguably the best rally, maybe next to Rally Speed and potentially Rally Magic. They're pretty similar there. So that's why he is above Dedue here. Otherwise, I think they're pretty similar. Aloise is an interesting character. is interesting as well. I had a hard time placing him. I wasn't really sure, so I'm definitely open to moving him around. I'm open to moving anyone around, but Alois definitely. He just doesn't have anything in his kit that is super useful or unique at all, really. Just about any character can do what he does, deal decent damage, and with axes and whatever else. His biggest redeeming quality is definitely his rally strength that he learns at D authority, which is super useful. Rally strength is great, just like Raphael. That kind of redeems his character, makes him okay. By no means is he a bad unit. Just like pretty much everyone in this game, no one's really that bad. But there's just so many good units that it's hard to put him any higher than just kind of an average unit. Same goes for Hanneman. He has rally magic from the very beginning, which is super useful, especially when considering warping and rescuing with either Lysithea, Linhardt, Flane, all those people. The movement spells that all work off of magic divided by 4. So +4 magic is an extra space, and that can make the difference in certain situations. So I like him for that reason. He also hits on the usually lower defense stat being resistance, which gives him some favor over Alois. But overall, his speed is so bad that he's never going to double anything. He's only going to get doubled, and on top of that, he's super fragile. Not much you can do with Hanneman outside of rally and do some decent to okay chip damage that he will do with bolting and other magic spells. On top of that, his Faith magic list is really unimpressive. Doesn't have a whole lot going for him there. Now let's move on to good. This is our biggest tier. So a lot of people ended up in here. So first we have Lorenz. Lorenz is just like not great at anything, but he's like okay at everything. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any really other good way to explain it. I don't feel like he'll ever deal a ton of magic damage, but he's also never going to deal a ton of physical damage. I feel like in maddening especially, you need to be specialized in either strength or magic to really make a difference and to deal a lot of damage to the point where you're one-rounding. And I don't think Lorenz is really ever going to get there. I do think he is better than Hanneman. He's much more salvageable when it comes to his stats overall. But his magic list is relatively weak. I mean, he does learn Ward, which is a pretty unique and interesting spell to have. Being able to increase a unit's resistance is nice. But overall, he misses out on Physic. And then as far as his Reason magic goes, it's pretty average. Nothing too special there either. He doesn't learn any spells that give him extra range. However, you could just throw the Thyrsus on him or the Caduceus staff on him and get some extra range that way. But you could do that with any magic user, so I don't really think that's a point in his favor. As far as physically, he's just going to struggle to kill. He's going to struggle to outspeed things. Lorenz just so average everywhere. He's like good, but he's not great. He can fill a slot in your team if you need him to, but he's not going to, he's not going to rock the boat too much. Next we have Ignatz. Ignatz really... I struggle with Ignatz as well. He learns rally speed really fast at D authority, and then he learns rally dexterity, but his next useful rally doesn't come until S with rally strength. He's probably not going to reach S rank authority in a new game playthrough, because, it's just not going to happen. But if you did get there, that would make him extremely useful. The only reason that he is in good rather than just average for me is because he does specialize in bows, and bows being an important early game weapon type in maddening mode. He comes with curve shot, and that's great too. But overall, Ignatz is really disappointing except for his early rally speed. Next we have Ash and Bernadetta, who are both basically the same unit. They have similar kits. They both learn Deadeye. Ash does have a personal skill that allows him to open chest and whatnot, but Bernadetta has a personal skill that increases her damage output when her HP is under 100%. It depends on who you are to really say which one's more useful than the other. I think, me personally, I would put more stock into Bernadetta's. It's a lot easier to set up being in lower HP, and it's a lot more useful than, say, trying to find a chest, and there's not chests on every single map for him to make use of his personal skill. So I would put Bernadetta slightly above Ash, but they're pretty interchangeable. They both earn Deadeye, they both come with Curve Shot, they both really do well with bows, and they both don't have too difficult of a time of getting into flyer classes. Bernadetta can also learn Darting Blow in addition to Death Blow if you really want to, so there's that as well. But again, Bernadetta ever so slightly over Ash. However, Bernadetta, I would say, has pretty good magic utility too. I mean, her magic is abysmal, But if you want to go that route, she does learn Rescue eventually. So that's a thing. Next, we have a whole slew of magic users, 5 in a row, that I consider to be basically just magic users. I mean, they can do other things too, I guess, but they're primarily meant to, looking at their stats and growth rates and everything, they're meant to be magic users, right? And I had a hard time ranking them because, I don't know, honestly, they all perform pretty similarly in a lot of ways, except for Hubert here. I think Hubert definitely belongs at the bottom of the 5. So Hubert is a nuke. He just, like, if Lysithea didn't have warp, she would essentially be Hubert, right? So without a really good Hubert doesn't have good utility magic. He's not going to be able to heal effectively. He doesn't have physic. He doesn't have anything of the sort that way. But he has some really good dark magics. He does have 1 to 3 range dark magic as well at his disposal pretty early on with Meyer, which can be really useful. Give him the Thersis, and he's going to be attacking from 1 to 5 range pretty early, and that's pretty nice as well. So that's something to consider. He'll be able to counter attack no matter what, although he is pretty squishy like most mages, so you're not going to really want him to do that. So I don't know. I feel like if he would have had Warp or Rescue or even Physic, I would have put him in great tier. But without those, I couldn't justify putting him in good. His damage output is good, but he doesn't do anything else for the team, right? One thing to mention for Hubert, though, is that he does have a really good personal skill that gives him +5 gambit damage, which can be really useful, especially early game. However, the real struggle with that is that his charm stat isn't that good, and it's not going to be that good after growing at all. You really need to throw like a rally charm on him to get to a point where his gambits are going to reliably hit, especially early game in maddening mode. So I don't know, it's kind of a moot point on that one, which is why I didn't give him like any real bonus points for that. Next, we have 2 units that are actually very similar. They both have Physic, and they both have Thoron, which is a great 1 to 3 range, Black Magic, which is great. Marianne and Dorothea, I feel they're pretty interchangeable. The only reason I put Dorothea above Marianne is because of her rally charm that she does learn early, and that's +8 charm, which can be a +40 swing to your hit chance with a gambit. And again, early game maddening, hitting with a gambit is nearly impossible, and even towards the end, it's still pretty hard. So +8 charm is nothing to sneeze at. It can be super useful, again, especially early game. So I think they're both pretty similar. They both have decent white magic, and they both have pretty good dark magic, black magic. Especially, and there is something to be said for Dorothea's Meteor, which does allow her to do linked attacks from a greater distance, which is kind of cool, but not as useful as you might think. So I would say they're both pretty good, but I'm going to put Dorothea slightly above Marianne. Next, these 2 are also pretty interchangeable to me. It depends on how much stock you put into Warp compared to Rescue and Fortify. But Manuela and... The major difference between these 2 is their stats, though, where Flame is going to have a much higher magic stat by the end of the game with her much bigger growth, whereas Manuela is going to struggle getting a decent magic growth, and her warp range isn't going to be that good. And while she does learn bolting, I don't think her Reason Magicalist is that good. And if you want to make her an attacker or do some good chat damage, Flame is going to be much better than Manuela there. So that's the justification between this ranking. Neither of them have Physic, and neither of them... and Flame really only learns a good long-range healing once she reaches A rank in Faith, so it's going to take some time to get there. I think they both are pretty similar units. However, I would put Flame slightly above Manuela. Shamir is interesting. She's not going to double much. She's going to get doubled in Maddening a lot, and she's going to do like okay to good chip damage for most of the time with heavy draw, curve shot, and stuff like that. She does specialize in bows, which is really nice. But getting her into a flyer class is going to take some time, as she comes with an E in flying. And getting her into Bow Knight is also going to take some time, because it's, again, E in flying. I mean, because again, E in riding. So she's kind of hard to train into anything super special, but she can be a good addition to your team and do some good chip damage. I don't think there's anything too great about her, but good, like top of good tier is about where I think she belongs. Mercedes has 2 things keeping her from being in great tier, and that's either better offense or that's either better offense or having a utility spell such as Warp or Rescue. If she had Warp or Rescue, she'd be in grade tier. But other than that, she really does have one of the best, if not the best, list in the game. Being able to use Physic and Fortify is really great. So I really teetered on putting her in the bottom of great, but I decided the top of good. Her stats are great as well. She'll end up with really good magic by the end of the game and have a really big Physic range, which is really nice. Though the thing that really sets her apart is just having both Physic and Fortify, which puts her above other characters that just have Fortify, like Marianne and Dorothea. But again, she lacks Warp or Rescue. With those, she would definitely be in great tier. Alright, let's move into great tier, which I've defined as like 1 or 2 flaws, maybe 3 flaws, but not all of them need to matter. But essentially, these characters are just like a step or 2 away from being in best of the best. So, Linhardt is going to come in at our first unit in great tier. Linhardt has Warp and Physic, which is great. He has a decent black magic list as well, but the big thing is Warp and Physic. Warp and Physic on one unit is just super useful. His magic stat isn't going to be high as a certain other Warper later on that we're going to talk about, and so his Warp range isn't going to be as big, and he also misses out on a Gremory class that gives him extra uses of his white magic and a higher magic stat, but he does just fine in Bishop with 2 warps. But if you could do Warlock if you want a little more magic and more uses of his magic spells. And if you want him to have more movement, he can move around into Dark Knight or into Holding Knight relatively well. So Linhardt is a great unit. Physic and Warp really make him what he is. So yeah. Now this next one might shock some people. Annette is an awful combat unit, and I understand that. But she has the best rally combination in the game. By the time Annette reaches C+ in Authority, she'll have Rally Strength, Rally Res, and Rally Speed. The Rally Res is whatever, but Rally Strength and Rally Speed on the same unit is so nice. Being able just to rally one person, increase their damage output, and potentially help them double or keep them from getting doubled is amazing. So essentially, if you get to the point where if she does rally a unit that almost doubles, but then +4 they do double, and +4 strength, that's like giving someone +8 strength, right? So that is amazing utility. I love it. It makes her just like super good. Her speed is atrocious. She doesn't learn Physic, so she's not like the best magic user, but her rallies are so good that I couldn't help but put her in great tier. Next, we have 3 units that are all fairly similar, and you could really change where each one was. Hilda, Ferdinand, and Sylvain. I do have them listed here because I like Sylvain's personal skill the best, and Hilda's and Sylvain's personal skills really synergize well, and you can give like Sylvain +5 attack with it if you have them both next to each other, which is amazing. But Sylvain's Philanderer, which is +2 attack and +2 defense when next to a female unit, is amazing. Ferdinand's is less so, being +15 hit and evade when at full HP, so it's like Perfectionist from Fates. And Hilda's is, I can't remember what it's called, and Hilda gives +3 attack to adjacent male allies, which can be huge. So those 3 are but on top of that, they all have a really easy time moving into the Wyvern and Wyvern Lord classes, allowing them to just fly around, have really good speed and strength, and they deal a lot of damage. Not to mention some really good relic weapons that they all can use. And it can be argued that Ferdinand has the best crest in the game, allowing him to circumvent counterattacks, which can be really useful. Now, the next 2 might be kind of surprising to a lot of you, being Byleth and, Byleth. I do have them listed in this order on purpose. I think female is slightly better than male. If we're talking about recruiting Sylvain, that's a thing. But also, access to Darting Blow is nice, which in Maddening, it could be argued that that's more important than Death Blow. But I think they're pretty interchangeable. But she can get both if you want. So it's not super realistic, but it can happen. The reason they're not in best of the best is because they can't be trained every week as easily as the students. And in New Game Plus, this doesn't matter all that much because you just run around and do a bunch of learning from the Knights of Syros and the other professors at the academy. But in a new game where your activity points are limited, especially early game, you're going to struggle to do that. You're going to struggle to really level up their weapon abilities. They do have one of the best personal skills in the game, though, allowing them to gain 1.2%, allowing them to gain 20% more experience, and all adjacent units to them gain an extra 20 experience in battle, which is really, really good and allows them and other units to level up quickly and catch up if they fall behind. However, they're going to struggle. However, in Maddening, they're going to struggle to move into anything other than their canon class, being the Enlightened one. They really want to end up in flight classes. They really want to be flyers, like pretty much every other physical attacker in the game. But they really struggle to get there because there's early game, you can only learn flight from Seteth and from Manuela. So it takes some time to get there. Once you do get them into a flying class, though, it can start raising naturally, and that's nice too. But those are just like one or two things keep them out of best of the best. Like statistically, skill-wise and everything, they are amazing units, both the Byleths. But I can't justify putting them in best of the best when the units up there are just as good as they are. Next, we have Seteth, who has Rally Defense, which is not as good as Rally Strength or Speed, but I would say it's better than Rally Charm, Luck, Rally Charm is super situational. Sometimes it's just better than all the other ones too. But I'd say that Rally Defense is better than Rally Res or Luck for sure. So it's not the worst rally in the game, and it gets it can do some good work. -4 damage is nothing to sneeze at. He does start as a Wyvern, and he has a good authority rank to start, so that's really nice as well. Being able to use good battalions is nice, although if you want him to stay as a flyer, he's going to struggle to use some of those other really good battalions. He does have access to... There are some flying battalions that are really good and are going to be fine. However, he'll miss out on some of the better ones, if we're being honest. Next, we have Catherine, who is in great tier because of her amazing base stats. She's going to come with really good strength and speed, and she's going to be hitting hard right from the beginning. And she'll be useful throughout the entire game. She's a fairly similar unit to Felix, but I only put Felix above her because Felix is going to be able to move into flying classes more effectively than she is, especially if you recruit or have Felix from the beginning of the game. So they're both very similar. They both deal tons of damage. They both double more often than not, and they almost never get doubled except by some really fast endgame assassins and sword masters. But they're both really good. However, as far as Felix goes, what keeps him out of best of the best tier for me is his Bane in authority. Getting him to raise his authority is pretty rough, and I understand that his personal skill gives him +5 strength, which gives him, without a battalion equipped, which gives him some of the best early game, but his end game is lacking unless you really focus on getting his authority up, whereas other characters do it more naturally and can get access to better battalions early on compared to him. Next, let's move on to best of the best tier. So these characters have no flaws, or I don't think their flaws really matter all that much, and they just contribute so much to the team. They're super useful. So first we have Dimitri. Dimitri is going to be one of your heaviest damage dealers in the game. Amazing strength, amazing speed. His personal classes only enhance his strength and speed even further and just makes him a really good footlocked unit. He's probably one of the better footlocked units in the game, if I'm being honest. And I say footlocked not because he can't get into Wyvern, but because it's going to be rough to get him into Wyvern. He has a Bane in Wyvern. He has a Bane in Flying, which does hold him back a little bit. But you can get there if you really work at it and really want to. I would argue that it's not really necessary to get him into a flying class, but it does put him below everyone else that is in best of the best in my book. Now, Ingrid, Petra, and Leonie they're basically the same unit, if I'm being honest. Ingrid does have higher charm and has a higher charm graph, so she'll end up with higher charm. So hitting with gambits is going to be a lot easier for her than the other two. Whereas Petra is going to struggle the most with gambits, and Leonie is kind of average on that. Leonie does have the better defense overall between her growth and her base, And Petra is kind of just the... And Petra has the highest base speed outside of... Actually, no, I think she has the highest base speed of anyone. Petra does have the highest base speed of any student in the game, which is really amazing and honestly really impressive. At 10, and it'll only grow from there and get even faster. The same goes for Leonie as well. She will grow fast and be really good. As far as personal skills go, I would argue Leonie probably has the best personal skill, allowing her to deal extra damage and receive less damage when next to a male unit. Actually, again, another one that synergizes really well with Sylvain. They can both give each other bonuses if they stay next to each other, and that's something to consider as well. Ingrid's personal ability is also pretty good, allowing her to hit more often, having a better hit rate and deal more damage with gambits, working really well with her higher charm stat. But Petra's is probably the worst, allowing her to have more... it allows her to have a higher critical rate when enemies are under 50% HP, which, I mean, I guess on monsters that's nice, because monsters have really high health bars, like their last health bars, like 150 HP or something ridiculous, can be useful there. But more often than not, if an enemy is under 50% HP, you're not going to need the extra crit rate. You're going to be able to kill them outright, regardless of a crit. So the ordering on those three is really whatever to me. They all have a really easy time getting into flying classes. Leonie does have a really easy time of being a bow-wielding flyer, which I would argue is one of the better options in the entire game. Having a Falcon Knight or a Wyvern Lord using a bow with curve shot and other good skills can be really useful, and just high movement with high range is really good. I would argue that that's a better alternative for bow users than Bow Knight, having a Wyvern Lord or a Falcon Knight with a bow. And Leonie's like built for that. It works out really well. So those three are all really good. Again, kind of interchangeable, but that's where I'm going to put them for now. Next, we have Edelgard, who her personal classes are probably the worst of the three Lords' personal classes, being armored and having really low movement. But she has a easy time moving into flyer. Being a Wyvern Lord, she'll dunk on people. And her relic weapon allows her to basically have Gale Force 5 times in the same turn if you really want to go for that. So she will be able to move around like crazy if you want her to. She'll be able to like solo maps if you need her to as a Wyvern. If you want her to be an Armor Knight, she's not going to be as good. I would suggest not doing that at all. Just have her be a flyer. She'll do really well as one. And other than that, there's not much to say. She's just super solid. She's super strong. Her base strength is really high. She's going to be she's one of the strongest units in the entire game. And if you make her a Wyvern, she's just going to tear things apart. She doesn't have any real flaws really either. She's just really good. Now, I put Claude above Edelgard because of his personal class, Barbarossa, being a flying bow-using class. He also gets pass, which is really cool. But it's really doesn't matter. I mean, both of them are really good and they're pretty interchangeable. Claude will deal tons of damage with Fail Not, and he comes with a really good battalion. I didn't mention that for Dimitri. Dimitri comes with like one of the better battalions in part 2, whereas Claude does actually come with what I would argue is the best battalion with the best gambit in the entire game. Well, I'll say a best attack gambit, because you could make arguments for like Blessing or Impregnable Wall or other gambits being better. But man, Barbarossa is such a good class, and an 8 pass is hard to pass up. Claude's going to be a really good contributor to your team in Maddening, and he'll just dominate the field. Now, my number one unit, I'm sure, is no surprise to most of you. Anyone who watches my videos knows that Lysithea is one of my favorite units in the game, maybe in the entire series. She's just super fun to use. She has the best white magic spell in the game, being Warp, and she'll end up with the highest magic stat in the game with a good base and also the highest growth. She will be able to warp all across the map and do just insane things with that. Being able to clear maps in one turn if you're into that. But if you're not into that, guess what? Her magic stat is so high and her speed is good enough that she will be one-rounding almost anything on the map. And the things that she can't one-round with, like normally, like Holy Knights or Dark Knights that have pretty good resistance, she has Dark Spikes for and will be dealing tons of damage to them as well. Lysithea has some of the best utility and some of the best magic use and some of the best attack magic in the entire game. she will be super good. She learns Warp earlier than any other unit in the game as well. She learns it at B, where Linhardt and Manuela learn it at A. Lysithea is just so good. So good. And as I'm finishing explaining this, I'm just now realizing that Cyril isn't here. But Cyril, I would put in average tier or below average. He's kind of bad. He auto levels terribly, being stuck in the commoner class as he auto levels. And I don't know, point blank volley is a thing, but point blank volley doesn't like salvage his character at all. I think there's other units do that better anyways. Like he learns it early, I get it, but there's other units that use bows better than he does and will kill regardless of point blank volley. That's just kind of how it is. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. Let me know in the comments. Again, I want this to be a community tier list. I want this to be the Fire Emblem discussion tier list, not the Atom tier list. I want this to be all of our projects. So this is just kind of a base to work off of. So in the comments, let me know where units should move. And don't just say, oh, Leonie's too high, or oh, Shamir is too low. Make sure to give me a reason, because if you just tell me something's wrong, I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to change it. But if you give me some good reasoning behind it, I don't know, I'll think about it and present it, and then we'll kind of talk about it again, and maybe we'll do another video where we move some stuff around, have another debate in the comments, and then do it again. But for now, don't just tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong, is all I'm saying. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I realize I just talked forever about every single unit, every single playable unit in the game, and it took forever. But I appreciate your patience, and I hope that you will give me some good feedback in the comments. So if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I would appreciate it. Help the channel grow and be part of a fun community. Go check out our Discord. The link to that is in the description. And of course, go check out the Patreon page. Again, the link is in the description. Support the channel. Keep the lights on here at FED. I really appreciate it. But if you'd prefer to keep it more YouTube focused, you can also press that join button next to the subscribe button, where you can pay a small fee that also supports the channel, and you get the use of some emotes and some other tier benefits by using the join feature. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.